Hi, my name is Courtney, and in this video I will be summarising and critiquing the chapter Transfer and Proficiency in Interlanguage Apologising from the book Speech Acts Across Cultures. Pragmatic transfer. The influence of people learning a foreign language and the impact of their cultural background has been a focus for interlanguage pragmatics. Sociopragmatics is how pragmatic meaning reflects local condition because communication norms differ from one culture to another. Therefore, if a learner lacks knowledge of appropriate linguistic behaviour in a different country, they may experience difficulty speaking another language. The effect of a second language learner's cultural backgrounds and the social rules of the language they are learning will impact their perceptions, behaviours, and ability to learn the language. If a second language learner understands the cultural context of the speech, it is easier for them to learn the language effectively. Examples were provided in the text. The difficulties that Russians and English-speaking learners of Hebrew face. The Russians felt the need to apologise as determined by the nature of the act committed, whereas English-speaking learners made an apology depending on cultural context. Several other factors impacted pragmatic transfer. These included how long a learner has lived in the target community, the learner's understanding of the target community, and how well they understood the second language. Some studies suggest that the length of stay in a country influences second language pragmatic behaviour in a non-linear fashion. For example, highly proficient long-term residents often preserve some of their first language communication style and even pass it on to the next generation of immigrants. For instance, American immigrants from Israel who can speak the language need to maintain their cultural identity as separate from the country at large. Native and non-native apology. Non-native speakers need to learn what is and is not acceptable according to the culture of the language they are learning, as the conditions could differ from their native culture. A new language learner needs to understand the rules of whether or not to apologise, as these rules may be different to their native culture. There has been a lot of studies done on the apology speech act set using a set of scenarios that are related to an offensive action and serve as the speaker's attempt to make it go away by either conveying regret and proposing a remedy or by diminishing the offence or the speaker's responsibility for it. The text discusses the apology speech act set, which is determined by a diversity of context internal and context external aspects. A context internal factor used as a solution for minor breaches of politeness and social rules is the use of excuse me, whereas I'm sorry is used to express regret about a person's issues or harm to another person's feelings. There is also a difference between ritual and substantive apology. A substantive apology is where the offender's responsibility to apologise affects the choice of the way they apologise. The influence displayed to have the most potent effect on apology comprehension is the severity of the wrongdoing. In the case of a substantial problem, a study demonstrated a shift from the apology pattern, apology account, and the compensation offer. Also, the more severe the wrongdoing influences female and male offenders to use various apology methods. New Zealand female offenders apologise more to more minor offences, whereas the men apologise to more significant crimes. Non-native speakers were seen to take less responsibility for severity in the choice of their apology largeness. According to most studies, apology performance is affected by the context external factors, social power, and social distance. In American and Thai apologising, social power did not affect the offender's choice of apology method. Discussion of research from the chapter. The research was undertaken in this chapter on whether pragmatic transfer is constrained by contextual factors and whether it is affected by the learner's proficiency level. Research showed that negative transfer, where the influence of the native language leads to errors in the use of the target audience, was rarely at work in the learner's apology results than the universal influence of positive transfer. Advanced learners were better at imitating American apology behaviour than intermediate learners. Also, with the exception of taking responsibility and contradiction, intermediate learners from Japan differed from Americans in that they provided fewer examples of the apology method in question. Compared to native speakers and advanced learners in the United States, the negative transformation of apology methods contained a more straightforward, first language-based approach to redressing offenders. The intermediate learners' transition behaviour in this study and intermediate Thai English learners is paradoxically alike and unlike. As a result, the negative pragmatic transforming patterns in these strategies were very similar to intermediate Japanese learners. According to previous research, negative pragmatic conversion is more common in foreign language contexts than in second language contexts. The difference in negative transition between Thai and Japanese learners can be explained in part by the learning context. Thai students were learning English in a foreign language environment, while Japanese students were learning English in a second language environment. Critique. This chapter produced a significant explanation of pragmatic transfer, native and non-native apology, and research on whether contextual factors constrain pragmatic transfer and whether it is affected by a learner's proficiency level. Including research on people learning a foreign language, people learning a second language, intermediate learners, and advanced learners was very effective as it covers all research areas, but there were limitations related to understanding the text and the way the text was presented. The research could have also been improved by expanding it to look at the pragmatics of more countries. This chapter was written at a higher level, so the target audience was people with a complete understanding of linguistics. To improve this, I would suggest writing at a lower level. The text was insightful as I learnt a lot of information from it which I did not know before. The explanation of transference and proficiency in interlanguage apologizing were very detailed and to the point. The research conducted was well done and came to some interesting conclusions and displayed many comparisons. Therefore, whilst there were many parts of this chapter which were produced excellently, some improvements could be made. Questions. Would the article have been any different if they included a wider selection of countries with varying cultures? Should language instructors give pragmatic instructions? Why do some long-term residents of a foreign country choose to hold on to their culture and not integrate fully into the society? Is it ever possible for someone to integrate into a foreign country fully? Thanks for listening.